Per usual, everyone on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It is Setup Sunday, January 5th already, 2025. The year's flying by here, folks. Not too much has happened on price. BTC still waiting around that 99 to 100,000 level. We're still waiting on a lot of macro question marks, a lot of question marks on the crypto side. The one thing we do know is very strong regulatory tailwind coming because of regulatory clarity and the likelihood of increased crypto products. This may be the year of the alt, not necessarily alt season, but the year of the alt. The other main issue here, of course, is dollar strength, which hopefully for us on the crypto side has topped for the year, but we'll take a look at that. So throughout this video, it's just good to think about, where do you, the trader, want to be? Where am I right now? I'm not really in am I in beta? I'm in a little beta. I am not over here. I think leveraged beta is a little too early. I think HODL is always fine. This isn't early, it's just risky. That's all. The beta side, in my mind, just because direction here is kind of a coin flip. Downside for BTC is 80. S&P has a decent downside target around 5,500. These aren't calls. These aren't must happen directions or whatever, right? This is just an if this then that. If we break down, that's where we go. Now, BTC certainly doesn't look like it wants to break 93 anymore. But if we fail at 100 and go back to 92, I'm going to be saying, well, now it looks like 80, right? Such is the nature of the beast. And if you're not sure, you don't have to play the game. You don't have to trade. You don't have to take the trade. So it's mostly what I'm doing here is just sticking to the stuff that I know. Sticking to the old BTC and some ETH for ETH BTC. We'll take a look at that this video. As far as BTC and ETH flows, those have both quieted down quite a bit. We'll see if those pick up over the course of Q1. We still don't have a full trading week this week on the legacy side because on the 9th we have a day of remembrance for Jimmy Carter, RIP. On the DXY, we've had what feels like 25 weeks of straight up. Crypto hasn't really cared too much, which is surprising. This should be a bigger headwind for us than it has been. Thankfully, back to that regulatory clarity piece, that's likely why we have not spilled lower. That's likely why all of the M2 liquidity charts look a lot worse than price feels here. Sailor, obviously, a big part of that as well, just a perpetual weekly buyer. So those things help. Those things mean it's harder for us to go down. People are speculating on the SBR. People are trying to front run Trump inauguration. I keep seeing charts, us going to like 125 and then crumbling back down on January 20th. Sure, you could tell me anything right now and I'd believe you, but the higher the DXY goes, the harder it is for risk assets to do well. The higher DXY goes, the higher yields go. The higher yields go, the harder it is for risk assets to do well. This is the 10-year yield. If you're bullish on this chart, you probably shouldn't be in 100% risk. Probably not. As this goes higher, if this goes to 5 or above 5, then we're probably going to run into problems. And the other part of this equation as well, everybody's so bearish, they're bullish. If something bad happens, Trump's going to bail us out, Powell's going to bail us out, they're going to bring rates down, they're going to pump liquidity. I'm not in disagreement with any of that. I agree with that 100%. But we sort of have to get there. We have to turn the printer on. The printer isn't turned on yet. We need something bad enough for the printer to get turned on. We'll see if we get that this year. So you can either eat the downside, which many people do, or trade it a little more actively. That's of course up to you. But definitely something to watch would be the dollar and DXY. Sorry, the dollar and the 10-year yield. If those both move higher, the S&P probably moves lower. This is still a head and shoulders setup. It is not confirmed. It is not completed. If this, then that. If we break 58 again, we probably go towards 5,500. Not a big move down, but it's a move down. And again, it's harder for BTC to do well. Not that BTC has to correlate or has to follow, but generally when things are bearish, correlations move towards 1, correlations increase. So it's just harder for BTC to do well if legacy is rolling over. S&P on the cloud also looks tired. It doesn't necessarily scream turbo bearishness, right? We don't have a bearish TK crosshair. We're still above the cloud. This is recoverable, but I wouldn't open a trade here. Not for me. Best times to open trades are always post TK crisscross, price above cloud. So you had your impulse there, you had your impulse here. Now here just feels a little late. If you're a DCA or if you're a 401k or whatever, you'll be fine. But if I'm taking a 10x trade here, I'm waiting. I'm just waiting to see what happens. Above 6,100 and the head and shoulders potential gets negated, but below 58, you have more evidence on the cloud here of a bearish edge to edge from 59 to 56. So that's something to watch for throughout the quarter as well. One of the sectors that hasn't really done much of anything for quite some time is SMH, semis, and they don't need to do anything, but the better they do, the better the S&P does, the better NVIDIA does, obviously, because that's a majority component of the SMH. The better some of these miners will do because they are connected to the hyperscalers and power and that sort of thing, electricity. NVIDIA's earnings aren't until February, so this could just chop around, but I would definitely set an alert on this for 260. I don't think there's a trade here. This is just huge chop. Above 260, I'd certainly have more confidence on direction. There's an old mega head and shoulders that just hasn't broken down. Again, these things don't need to do anything ever. They don't need to complete. It's just, what do you do in the face of seeing this? In the face of seeing this form, you should probably do nothing, get out, and wait to see what happens. At this point, you haven't been punished if you've been holding something like this, but you're eating opportunity costs because it's been however many months here where SMH hasn't gone anywhere. So of all the sectors, the better SMH does, the better crypto does, really. And it probably means that dollar down, 10-year yield down. Before we talk about BTC, let's talk about MSTR. It is not a trade here for me. Everybody trading this is trading this off of not technicals. If they were trading off technicals, there really wouldn't be a reason to do anything here. Bearish TK cross, in and out of the cloud, neutral. There's nothing here that says this is a great trade for me. The great trade here was down here to somewhere up here. That'll be the next trade for me. I like this below 250 and probably above 430. I don't know, but I don't really see much of anything here. But MSTR is good to watch because it should help swing sentiment one way or the other. You know, is the tail wagging the dog? Is this leading BTC? Is this a sentiment gauge? Is this a risk on gauge? Is this a left curve gauge? Whatever. It could be all those things. But if you're trading BTC, if you're trading crypto, you should definitely be watching MSTR. Now for BTC, I think we're back near 99 at the moment. But we certainly look more bullish than we have on low time frames. I'd rather be up here than at 90, right? Is this a slam dunk trade for me that I can see? I don't see anything turbo bullish. You could argue some sort of Adam and Eve triple bottom. I don't know. People were drawing Wyckoff and all sorts of fun stuff on lower time frames. For me, if we're above 100, that's good enough. Decent shot towards 125. Then the longer we can hold above 92, the better. 4-hour cloud also says similar, anything above 100, and it's go time again. For a low time frame bullish trend, on the daily, we're starting to lose the bullish TK cross. This is going to take like a month, right? Like it's not anytime soon, most likely here on the TK cross. If we break back above the Tenkin, then that could trigger more momentum, right? Anything back above 100K. So this is definitely a day-by-day thing. But just like the S&P, we have this potential edge to edge from 93 to 80 still on the table. So knowing that information, whether or not we hit 80, I don't know. But if I say I'm bearish today, bearish last week, and we hit 80 within the next couple months, was I right or wrong? I don't know. But it's still there. 80 is definitely the downside risk. If we, for whatever reason, start to roll over this week and things get angry, 93 to 80 is what I'll be watching. Just like we had bullish TK cross in February last year, a similar setup is very possible where we have a huge move, slow down, regather strength, go again in March or towards Q2. But just like the S&P, does this look like a huge fresh trade here? To me, not quite. If we invalidate the head and shoulders, 125, I said I like. So that's a trade. There's some Adam and Eve stuff here. That's a trade. Breaking 92, that's a trade. But until we're above 100, I don't really think there's much to do here. Another reason to like 120, 125 would be a yearly pivot up there. And anything below 80 is probably unlikely, just because that's the 20-week moving average down there. We generally, in a bull trend, stick above the 20-week moving average. Didn't do that in May through September, but usually on the first move to the 20-week, we don't pierce through it, just like we didn't over here, we didn't there. So that, again, would be the floor for me here. Looking at a few other things just to check where are we at in the cycle. I'm not worried about anything whatsoever. MVRV is down here at 2.75. We're fine. Puel 1.2. 2-year moving average multiplier 240. Pi cycle not crossed, unbothered, moisturized in its lane. Realized cap hodl waves elevated on the 3 to 6 month in down bands, but we're not at bubblicious levels where 80% of the network is moving on chain over the past 6 months. Something that's going to be really, really interesting if we get in-kind transfers to the ETF. That's going to mess up on-chain activity a lot for a brief period of time if people decide to use that avenue, right? If they're moving, basically, if you're moving coins from a wallet to the ETF, that's going to trigger on-chain activity. So that would potentially be a false signal to watch for, depending on what we see. We don't even have in-kind creates redeems yet for the ETFs, but something to keep in mind if you are a on-chain data enjoyer. And then looking at price relative to the 200-week moving average, looks fine, no issues. It would be an odd place to stop here if this was the top. Nothing at all says we are extremely overheated. All these TradFi Muppets keep saying it's a bubble, it's a bubble, it's a bubble. Well, okay, you ain't seen nothing yet. Let me just tell you, if the power law corridor is remotely accurate, you're talking about some pretty insane levels from here, 200, 300, 400. I don't think we see anything above 300 this cycle. I think it's going to be hard to get anything above 300, but we really haven't started the parabolic phase of the bull trend yet. It's still pretty orderly. We still have periods of low momentum, and we're not really seeing any haste here price-wise. Before we go any further, let me mention today's video sponsor, Kraken Pro. Kraken Pro is a complete overhaul of the Kraken trading experience with a one-stop shop for advanced and professional traders. Kraken Pro enables efficient trading execution across multiple markets with a UI that allows for unique optimization tailored to your trading style. You can check out Kraken Pro with a link in the description of this video. Not investment advice. Crypto trading involves risk of loss. Cryptocurrency services are provided to U.S. and U.S. territory customers by Payward Ventures, Inc., PBI, DBA, Kraken. On Kraken here, not too much happening in the past 24 hours. Filecoin randomly up a bunch, but for the most part, things are pretty tame. I think everything's waiting to see, can BTC break that 99-100 level? It looks like it wants to, but again, it's still possible that we see this multi-shoulder, head and shouldered stuff where we just don't break the Tenkin and we get back down to 93. We get a bearish TK cross. We go through. This is going to take weeks, right? It's just in the face of the inauguration, in the face of pre-inauguration vibes. Can we get bearish? I think it's going to be tough. It looks like that's what the chart wants to do, right? But we'll see. This week, right now, it looks like we're bulled up. We got, I think every day in the past 7 days has been green. So alts very much waiting on BTC. A lot of alts that are just up a ton. XRP, ADA. It's going to be harder to push those higher unless there's a tailwind, catalyst. Does ADA get an ETF? Does Dixie roll over? Does some of these others get ETFs randomly? I don't know, right? SUI has been very strong in this upward channel, just kind of vibing, just straight chilling. Looks good. No complaints whatsoever. It's going to be odd to see if BTC breaks lower. This looks at zero risk of breaking lower. This looks excellent. This made a new all-time high yesterday, okay? So it's going to be interesting if BTC drags this stuff down with it, or it's going to be a BTC-specific event. Sol, much like MSTR, that comparison still holds. Trade-wise, I don't see a trade here until it's back above cloud with a bullish TK cross. It's just not for me. ETH wants to break 4K very badly, and until then, not too much to do. But if you're bullish ETH, I don't hate accumulation. ETH underperformed BTC last year. ETH underperformed a lot of stuff last year, and at one point it was flat on the year. I do like ETH to do, 8K this year, something like that. I think it should do decently well if it breaks up, but 4K is certainly the level. And everything else down the list kind of just feels like it's waiting. It's waiting for something else to move first. It's waiting for stablecoin inflows. It's waiting for anything. It just doesn't quite have urgency, momentum, FOMO just yet. There was this head and shoulders on Link, hasn't broken down. You still may get that bearish TK cross on Link. We may get this other thing where we get a inverted head and shoulders on BTC and all these other alts before things start to break in either direction, right? We could, if we want to just mess up everybody, we hit resistance, break down at 100, find support at like 92, 93, and then the next time we get to 100, that's it. I don't know. I just don't have high conviction of much here. It's just very tough when you're in this range and not too much is going on. The last thing I'll mention for this week, ETH BTC continues to me to look tradable, high time frame, not a weekly idea, probably a quarterly idea. Honestly, this isn't something I'm expecting to do super well anytime soon, but what I like here is it's trying to get back above the daily cloud. It's trying to reach for the midpoint of this pitchfork, and you may get 2 more shoulders on this puppy. I don't know, but if you start to see the ETF flows coming in for ETH, you may see ETH BTC finally start to turn a corner. That's all for this one this week. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.